Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, which is an introduction to the UK Data Service. My name's Deborah and I'm one of the user support team here at Essex. Okay, so this afternoon, this is what we're going to have a look at. So I'll start by introducing who the UK Data Service is, and then I'll move on to having a look at the types of data that we hold. And then at the end, I'll just finish off by showing you some of the online resources that we have that can help you, especially if you're fairly new to working with data. And I'll also show you how you can get in touch with us if you ever need to get some help or guidance. And then right at the end, we should have enough time for some questions if you have any. Now, obviously there's quite a few of you attending, so you're all on mute, so you won't be able to talk to me. But there will be on the right-hand side of your screen a little chat box, and you can type any questions that you have there. And then obviously, as I say, when we get to the end of the webinar, I'll go through any questions that you've put in there. Okay, so let's get started. So who are we? So the UK Data Service is a comprehensive resource funded by the ESRC. And our aim really is to provide a single point of access to a whole host of different secondary social science data, and also to provide support and training. Now, the UK Data Archive is the lead organisation, and we have colleagues from across the UK as well. Now, if you're not familiar with our website, this is what the homepage looks like. And I would invite you all just to have a browse through the website in your own time. I'm not going to go through that today, but just to draw your attention to the very top right-hand corner. Here you'll find some frequently asked questions, the link you need to get in touch with us if you need help, and a new users link, which I will show you later on. So who do we serve? So we have over 27,000 users from all across the globe. A lot of them are from academia, so that's researchers and students, but we also have users from charities and different foundations, government analysts, and even people in the private sector, so perhaps business consultants. And we also have a lot of users from think tanks and independent research centres. So we're really here for anyone who wants to use data. Now, we don't actually collect the data ourselves. It's collected by a number of different authorities and agencies, and we archive the data and make it available. Now, the data comes from all sorts of different departments. So there's the national statistical authorities, such as the Office for National Statistics. We've got various government departments who deposit data with us, so the Department for Work and Pensions or the Home Office, for example. We have some international data from intergovernmental organisations, so that's organisations like the World Bank. And we have data from research institutes such as ISA, the logo you can see on the screen, and the Centre for Longitudinal Studies. And we also have an increasing number of data sets which are deposited by individual researchers. It's increasingly a requirement now that if you collect your own data and you are, for example, ESRC funded, that part of that funding is that you should deposit the data somewhere afterwards. So we're getting a wide range of different data sets now. Now, we have around 8,000 different data sets, and they fall into these main categories. So the first is the survey microdata. We have international macrodata, census data, and we also have a range of qualitative and mixed methods data sets. And I'm going to talk through those different types over the next few slides. So the first one is survey microdata. Now, microdata is individual or household level data which will have been anonymised to prevent disclosure. And what we mean by that is that it is anonymised to make sure that those individuals who have taken part in the survey can't be identified from those data sets. Now, these types of data sets need to be analysed using packages such as SPSS or Stata, or more increasingly people will use are now. The great thing about these types of data are they're very flexible. So you can have a look at very specific populations, you can produce all sorts of different tables and outputs, and you can have a look at lots of different attributes. Now, just to give you an example, if you're not so familiar, this is one of the very simple things you can do. So you could have a look, for example, at age and BMI, which is body mass index. This is a very simple example. You could just get it up in a tabular format like this, or you might want to represent your data some different way. So this graph shows gross weekly pay in main job by sets. And this is for the 10-year period of the annual population survey. So again, it's a fairly simple example, but it's just to give you an idea of the different types of output you can create. Now, we have a lot of different types of microdata, and one of the biggest groups are the UK surveys. Now, these are surveys which collect data about individuals or sometimes households. They have very large sample sizes, and they're designed to be nationally representative of the population. So that might be of the whole UK, or occasionally you'll get some which are just England or just Great Britain, just Wales, etc. Now, these are repeated cross-sectional surveys, and a lot of the surveys are repeated every year, but each time they're run, they use a brand new sample of people. Now, these surveys quite often have been running for quite a number of years, so they're very well run and they're very well documented. And they can cover a whole range of topics. So there are some which are focused on health, on work. We have some great surveys which look at crime, etc., etc. Generally, if there's a topic you're interested in, there will be some data there somewhere for you. Now, we have a large number of these types of surveys, but this is just to give you a flavour of the more widely used ones. And I'm going to have a look at one of these in more detail in just a moment. So you can see already we've got the labour force survey, we've got ones that are focused on expenditure and income, health surveys for each of the Great British countries. We've got crime surveys, etc., etc. So there really is quite a wide range of data available. So let's have a look at one particular one, and this is the labour force survey. Now, this survey has been running for a large number of years now, and it started in 1975 as an annual survey, but it changed to being a quarterly survey from 1991. This is a very large survey. They interview around 60,000 individuals every quarter. And one of the great things about this particular survey is that it's able to be used as a comparative data set if you're interested in looking at different countries, because it uses international definitions of employment, unemployment and economic inactivity. So it's a really widely used, very valuable survey. One of its primary uses is to inform social, economic and employment policies. As you might guess from the title, its primary focus is on things such as occupation, income, training and hours of work, but it also includes a lot of personal characteristics, not just of the individual, but also of the household members as well. And just to give you an example of a study that has used the labour force survey, now this was done by the National Foundation for Educational Research, and I've just included the link to the publication at the bottom for you if this is of interest. Now, there's a large sort of concern in policy about the retention of teachers and trying to establish why so many may leave the sector. And this just gives you an example of some of the results that they've been able to produce using this survey. Now, another type of UK survey is longitudinal data. Now, these look very similar to the UK surveys. They are individual level or household level, They also have very large sample sizes and they're designed again to be nationally representative. And again, the surveys are repeated, quite often yearly, although not always. But the main difference with this type of data is that the surveys follow the same individuals over time. So every time the survey is run, they aim to have all of the same individuals. And that really enables people to have a look at how things change at the individual level. Now, from time to time, obviously, people might move. It's very hard to keep in touch with people over a long period of time. So occasionally they will bring in new respondents every now and then just to keep the sample sizes high. Again, there are quite a large number of these studies. In the UK, certainly we have a very wide range of cohort and longitudinal studies, and here are some of the key ones here. And I'm going to have a look at a couple of these in more detail now. So the first one I want to talk about is the British Household Panel Survey. Now, this survey was run by the Institute for Social and Economic Research, based at the University of Essex. And the survey started in 1991, and it followed the members of 5,500 households every year up until 2008. Now, this is a multi-topic survey, so it doesn't necessarily have one focus. It will include information on pretty much all aspects of people's lives. So again, we've got income and labour market behaviour, but we've also got some attitudinal data in there, information about people's education, their housing condition, and how the household is organised. Now, in 2009, Understanding Society, or the UK Household Longitudinal Study, took over from the BHPS. Now, the sample then was expanded to include 40,000 households, which worked out to around 100,000 individuals. And the really great thing about this is from wave 2, they included all of the original BHPS sample members. So those particular individuals, we've now got data on from over 25 years. And again, because they follow the same individuals, this enables us to have a look at how things change at an individual or perhaps a household level. So we can have a look at what people experience throughout their lives, what sort of key events are common. We can have a look at attitudes and identity and how those things change. And we can have a look at how an individual or a household might respond not just to policy, but also to key events such as getting married, having children, divorce, for example. And we can also have a look at how changes in societal conditions will impact on those households. Now, another type of longitudinal study is a cohort study. Now, this again follows the same individuals over time. However, the way they sample is different. So in the cohort studies, they take a sample of babies who were born in a particular year, and then they'll follow those babies right through their lifetime, hopefully. We have a number of cohort studies in the UK, and we currently hold data for these 3. So that's the National Child Development Study, which sampled babies born in 1958. We've got the 1970 British Cohort Study and the Millennium Cohort Study. And there are some bespoke data sets, so there's one that looks specifically at twins in the NCDS and the BCS. Now, one of the really good things about having all 3 of these cohort studies is because they sample children born in different decades. So now we've got the benefit of being able to look at generational change. Now, the surveys do have a particular focus on health and medical matters, but again, they include a whole host of social and economic circumstances. These particular studies are not run every year like the Understand Society. They're run at certain age. So you can see here I've just listed the data sets that have been deposited to date. So if we have a look at the very first cohort, the 1958 cohort, we can see that the current data collection is when the respondents are age 60. So already you can see that we have information about these people right the way through their lifetime. Now, in terms of the content, this will change. So obviously when the child is very young, information is collected from the parents because the children are too young to be interviewed. But then once they get to a certain age, they will be interviewed directly themselves, and the content will change to make sure it is age specific. So for example, once they reach adulthood, they'll start to ask about work and those sort of things. And this is just an example, just to give you an idea of the sort of things you can do with these studies. This is a study which used the NCDS, and it shows how childhood psychological distress might influence the risk of being unemployed in young adulthood. And again, I've just included the link at the bottom in case that's a topic area that's interesting for you. So there's one final group of microdata that I want to mention, and that's the cross-national surveys. Now again, these are individual household level, but these now allow us to have a look at comparisons across different countries. Topics of these surveys include education, income, for example, and there's just a list of some of the examples that we have available. Okay, so let's move away from microdata for a few minutes and have a look at international macrodata. Now, macrodata is aggregate data, so this is statistics or counts, which are generally in a tabular format. Now, rather than looking at a unit of analysis of an individual household, now we're looking at geographical areas. And you can use these in a number of different ways. So you can use them just as they are. You can use them for further analysis, so if you want to have a look at trends or comparisons. And also a lot of people will use these types of data alongside microdata to add some contextual information. So you might be interested in neighbourhood level or country level conditions and want to know how they will influence an individual's outcomes. Now, international macrodata are time series data, and they are generally aggregated up to country or occasionally regional level. They are updated very regularly, sometimes monthly, and they're produced by international governmental organisations, so the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, for example. Now, traditionally, these have only been available to staff and students who are based at UK institutions of higher or further education. However, there is a real move to make as much of this as possible open access, and the World Bank data are now generally all open access. Now, these data banks together allow us to chart over 50 years of trends across a whole range of topics. So that might be economic performance, demographic measures, human development measures, social expenditure, etc. So they're really, really broad in the range of themes that they cover. Now, one of the differences with the macro data is that you don't use these with SPSS or data, as with the microdata. These you use through just an online web interface. So you can use these through your normal web browsers. So this is what ukds.stat looks like. This is the interface for looking at the international macrodata. And these are the sort of things that you can do with them. So this is just an example of a density map which shows total life expectancy. This particular example is for 2014. And this will just through a colour coding system show you where life expectancy is higher or lower. And this using UKDIOS.stat is actually a really simple thing to produce, although it looks very, very effective. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the third type of data now, and this is the census data. Now, as you will probably be aware, in the UK we have a census every 10 years, and we have done for very many years since the 1800s. Now, we hold data from 1971 to the most recent census, which was in 2011. Now, the census is really held up as the gold standard because the aim is to get everyone in the population to complete the census. Of course, in reality, there are always groups which are very hard to reach, but certainly it is the most broad coverage that you will get of the UK. And because of this, census data is used widely as a baseline for other statistics. So, for example, the ONS use it to produce the mid-year population estimates. Now, the census, if you've ever seen one, they collect a range of information each 10 years, and that allows you to have a look at fairly detailed combinations of different characteristics. And it also allows you to have a look at different geographical levels. Now, census outputs or data come in four main formats: aggregate data, boundary data, flow data, and microdata. Now here, just if you haven't seen one, this is the last census questionnaire. This is what the front page looks like, and it's sent out to every household in the UK. And on a specific date, everyone has to complete this and then return it. And you can see the range of topics that was in the 2011 census. Now, in terms of the aggregate data, this will give us counts of people or households, for example, that have particular characteristics for an area. Now, the areas that you can look at vary from very large to very small. So, for example, you could isolate the number of people who are aged over 50 and who are unemployed. So that's a combination of different characteristics within each of the wards in the district of Greater Manchester, for example. In order to do something like this, you would access them through our interface, which is called Infuse. This is a very simple interface to use, and again, you do that through your own web browser. And it's very simple. You'll just find a list of topics on the left-hand side, and you will just select the ones that are of interest to you. Once you've got your selection, you can then export the resulting numbers into Excel, for example, and then you can produce whatever graphs you want. So you might want to have a look at household deprivation, for example, by region. And this is just a very simple table that I've been able to produce for 2011. These are the absolute numbers, but obviously then you can use them to have a look at percentages and see what areas are more likely to be deprived than others. You can also have a look at smaller geographical areas. So this is a map we've been able to produce, which looks at the percentage of people who define themselves as Christian, and you can see how that's changed between the 2001 census and the latest census. In terms of the different geographical areas, here's just an example. So on the top left-hand corner, you can see the biggest areas, which is the government office regions. And you can get, if you follow the maps down to the bottom right-hand corner, you can zoom in very close detail. And this, in case you're not able to guess that, that is actually the Wirral, apparently. Now, to access the sort of tools you need to do this boundary analysis, there is a specific page on our website, and I've just included the links on here for you. One more type of aggregate data from the census is what we call flow data. And this is data for which there is an origin and a destination point. So there are two types. There's commuting, so that's looking at how people travel from their place of residence to their place of work. And we've also got migration, so that's looking at where they were on census day compared to where they were the year previously. And again, you just access those data through an online interface, and you can have a look here. We've got an origin and destination table for the government office regions. The final type of census data is the microdata. So this looks very much the same as the UK surveys that we had a look right at the beginning. And the data sets are referred to as sample of anonymised records. Now, because they look exactly like the UK survey data, you'll need to be using these through packages such as SPSS or Stata. But again, these types of data are very flexible, so you can have a look at specific populations in exactly the same way as you can do with the UK surveys. And we have these data sets available for 1991, 2001 and 2011. Okay, so the final type of data is the qualitative data. Now, qualitative data is a non-numeric data set. So rather than having all the numeric values in the other surveys, these will be in longer open text interviews. There'll be diaries, for example, focus group conversations, etc., etc. So they're much more varied. And you can just see an example of some of the data sets that we hold for these. And again, they tend to have a very specific focus, but the range of different collections that we have is really quite exciting. Okay, so we've had a look at the types of data. Obviously, as I mentioned, we've got over 8,000 data sets now, so please do have a browse through our website and just see what there is. Now, I need to mention registering with the UK Data Service, because if you haven't already, you will need to be registered to access most of the data sets that we hold. Now, if you're at a UK university, either as staff or student, then you simply use your own institutional username and password to log in and register with us. If you're not at a UK university, don't worry, you can still register. You just have one extra step to go through. So you will need to apply for a UK Data Archive username and password. In order to do that, on pretty much all pages in the top right-hand corner of our website, you will find the login/register buttons. You just simply need to click on those and follow the instructions. If you need some guidance, as you can see, I've shown the web page here. You can just have a look at the step-by-step guide before you get started. Okay, so I'm going to go through some useful resources, and then, as I promised, I will tell you how to get in touch with us if you ever need any help as you go through your work. The very first thing to have a look at if you're completely new to the UK Data Service is to have a look at our Advice for New Users page. Now, as I mentioned right at the very start, you'll find the link in the top right-hand corner of our homepage. From these pages, you can find all sorts of things. So there's guidance on how to search for data. If you need that guidance about registering with us, it's there. And also there's some more information if you want to go back over the types of data we hold. Another useful resource that we have are our series of webinars. Obviously, you've joined us today for the introductory one, but we have webinars throughout the year. And there is a program on our website which you can see the very first section of here. Now, some of these webinars are just very introductory. Some of them will look at specific types of data. And then we have some more specialised ones, and these might be for a particular methodology or a particular topic. So we've run them on specifically surveys for health research, We've looked at biomarkers, etc., and there's also a lot of data management webinars. Now, one thing I did forget to mention right at the start is we do record the webinars and we do make them available on our YouTube afterwards. So if you want to have a browse through that, just go onto YouTube and search for UK Data Service. And there's all sorts of videos there which are very useful. And some of the webinars are collaborative, so we will do them with other departments. We've done some with the Institute for Social and Economic Research, for example. So do have a look through. Now, one specific one I want to mention, if you are very new to the data service, if you want some helpful tips on how to search and access data, then we have a webinar next week on the 3rd of May, and that will give you all sorts of tips and guidance on how to get the best out of your searches. So feel free to sign up and tune in for that one. Now, another useful page is our Use Data page. Now, on here you can see the menu on the left-hand side, so you can access video tutorials, guides, etc. If you are interested in teaching with data, there's some resources there, and there are also some student-specific resources. So by all means, please do pop over to that web page and have a good browse. One thing I want to mention specifically, we have a brand new set of data skills modules. Now, these are some short online modules that are free to access through our website. We have one on looking at survey data, the second module is on longitudinal data, and the third is on international macro data. And they're designed for you to use at your own pace, at your own rate. And they're a mixture of short videos, there's some multiple choice questions, and some examples for you to work through. So please, by all means, do have a look at those. Now, another thing that we're having a campaign on this year is to encourage people to make sure they cite the data that they have used. Now, we're all very used to citing the publications that we refer to, but we don't always cite the data. So we're on a real drive to help people to do that more. And this is a really important thing because it really allows you to acknowledge the authors in the same way as you would do a publication. It promotes the impact of the data, so it allows the surveys that run the data to prove the impact that their survey is having. Very important in an industry that's dependent on funding. And it also allows people, if they read your work and they want to have a go at having a look at the same topic or reproducing your results, it tells them exactly what data you've used. So it's a really important thing. Now, one really important final thing to mention in terms of resources is how you can get in touch with us if you do need some help. So if you're struggling to find a relevant data set for your topic, or if you've got a data set already, but you're having problems identifying the right variables, there might be a variable and you don't quite understand the coding frame, for example, or you think there might be a problem with the data. Anything along those lines, we are here to assist you. And all you need to do to get in touch with us is just click on the help link right at the very top of our website. So do get in touch with us if at any point through your research you need some help. So thank you all very much for attending. I hope you found that useful, and don't forget to have a look at our events page and also have a good browse through the website if it's new to you. And last thing to say is all the very best for your projects and your research, and do keep in touch and let us know if we can help. Thank you.